Hello, my name is Brandy Caldwell, and I am your local Alabama Technology and Motion Specialist. And today I want to talk to you about ethical behaviors in the teaching profession. First, we're going to discuss social media. Now, this platform can be a slippery slope. Many people have multiple social media accounts, so it does make communicating a little more difficult in the profession of teaching. Social media is a great way to reach all stakeholders. As a matter of fact, many teachers that I serve have discussed that social media was the one way they were able to reach students in the pandemic and to reach their parents in a very effective and efficient way. But it can also be very complicated when you're trying to communicate. Here's a list of a few social media behaviors that are responsible when it comes to teaching. First of all, if you are teaching older students, it's best if you don't friend those students until after they have graduated. Also, setting expectations for parent and family interactions on social media is a very responsible behavior. It may be one that you as the teacher set those expectations, but it also could be that your school or district sets those expectations. Allowing safe and responsible interactions between students on classroom-related pages is a very responsible behavior when it comes to social media. But unfortunately, there are questionable social media behaviors that could cause problems. It doesn't mean that they will, but it means that they could. First of all, friending or adding students from your personal account. Some teachers suggest that having separate accounts, one that is personal and one that is for all school-related business, is the best policy. Second, using student names or faces on social media without explicit parental consent. This is something that many times districts will set up a form that allows parents to be okay with their students' faces or names being on the internet. But you definitely want to check that, particularly if you're teaching younger students. And then the last thing is oversharing or overposting. As much as stakeholders enjoy seeing what's going on in the classroom, they don't always want to oversee what's going on in your personal life. So definitely something to think about in the teaching profession, reining in your social media posts and what posts might be deemed inappropriate. It's very important to know your district and school policies. So many districts and schools will have definite set policies. Others will have more blanket, vague policies. And you, as the employee, are responsible for interpreting those and understanding what they mean for you. Does your system prohibit communications through social media or other non-school related provided platforms? So many school districts now are saying that the only way they want teachers to communicate with students or with parents is by using what is provided through the school system. Now that can feel like it's restraining you, but it's also there to protect you. So I think that's very important. Next, are all stakeholders clear on the expectation of appropriate, ethical, and professional behaviors in real life and the digital world? So it's important that the parents and the students understand what their responsibilities are, just as important as it is for the employee to understand what it means to be appropriate, ethical, and professional on social media. The second thing that we have to discuss is sexual misconduct. And it's a good segue to discuss this after talking about social media, because those digital tools that are out there that make communicating so easy can also make inappropriate behavior very easy. And it blurs those lines of the student-teacher relationship. So there are several crucial boundaries in the classroom that a teacher has to be very cautious about because you're spending so much time with students. First of all, emotional boundaries. You can't let emotions influence your behaviors and attitudes towards students. Next, relationship boundaries. These boundaries help keep those relationships with students purely professional. I'm not your friend. That's very important that you let them know that you care, but you're not their friend. You're definitely their teacher. There's power boundaries. Teachers are responsible for the welfare and the safety of students. This includes ensuring that they do not misuse that power or that position. Communication boundaries. Channels of communications are increasing, like I said before, with social media. So there's a need for boundaries, clear boundaries. Teachers have to remain transparent with the school, with parents, with everyone involved. And as long as that transparency is there, those communication boundaries are in place. And then physical boundaries. Especially when it comes to little ones, we tend to hug and put a hand on a shoulder. And we're not saying that that is not something you can do. You just have to be very professional and know that some students may not be comfortable with that. So you're better off having a policy where you do not touch a student at all, and then make sure they understand when you touch them, it's out of care and concern for them, and that you respect their physical space. Some problematic situations for teachers. First of all, social media friendships and communications outside of school sometimes will go beyond school related topics. And so you have to be very cautious when having anything happening outside of school when it comes to students. Next, coaching and sponsoring clubs. We definitely don't want to discourage anyone from coaching and sponsoring clubs. It's just that that extends the time with students and it blurs the line of those professional relationships. And you also want to be cautious never to be alone with one student or give a student a ride home. So these are tough situations that you can put yourself in and make things difficult. Next, rationalizing that a teacher is not in direct authority over a student and therefore can have a relationship outside of school. This is a loophole that sometimes teachers can rationalize or justify because I'm not directly over that student. I'm not in authority over them and I'm not breaking any rules. And that's just not the case. And then sharing personal information with students, and that leads to this deeper relationship and trust. And that can sometimes blur those professional lines as well. The third thing is cheating. And we as teachers have a hard stance on not wanting our students to cheat. But sometimes the high stakes testing and accountability that's out there can cause a lot of stress. And many teachers who probably swore they would never cheat have bent the rules without thinking about the consequences. Here are some reasons a teacher might cheat. You've been driven to teach the test. Therefore, you know how to beat the system. And so by knowing that test so well, a lot of times the things that you are doing can be considered cheating. Your tenure or promotion depends upon the scores of the test. That can drive someone to feel the need to cheat. Some districts offer financial stipends or bonuses that are tied to student performance on these tests. Some teachers will justify it's for the good of the school, the good of this student who needs this, or for their own reputation so that they are known as the teacher who produces good scores. And most don't think that they're going to get caught, and it causes them to lose their license and more. So some situations to avoid. First of all, you don't want any suggestion that a teacher doesn't have to monitor a group of students. That's a passive way of cheating, allowing students to be unsupervised. Next, reading the test materials either before, during, or after the test. These are just not acceptable practices. Next, coaching students so heavily that they look to the teacher during the test for help or answers. So that's the tough thing. Many schools will not allow a teacher to proctor or monitor their own students for that very reason. Next, you want to avoid encouraging a subgroup of students to be absent on a testing date. Possibly students that you feel will not do as well on the test, students with a language barrier. You cannot tell them to not attend and not be there so their scores are not counted. Another situation to avoid incorrectly indicating information on a demographic sheet or encouraging students to put false information so it invalidates their scores. Another thing, cleaning up the test documents. A lot of times teachers are asked to do this. When it's complete, erase those stray marks. Unfortunately, that is very tempting to then go in and correct an answer. So you definitely need to do that, cleaning up those stray marks, but don't have test materials beside you so that you're tempted to read and to check answers. And then any behavior that is not specifically indicated in the testing guidelines for a proctor or administrator. Really follow those guidelines to the T. Cheating happens, unfortunately. You can see in this graphic that these are a few behaviors that teachers said happen often or frequently in their school. And so look at those: changing students' answers, encouraging students to be absent, giving students answers, practicing the items from the test itself. So there's a lot of things here that many people might not realize that it's cheating, but it definitely is. So, a few last things. First of all, social media smarts. There's a link here that you can go and visit that has some suggested guidelines for educators. If your district doesn't have specific guidelines, you should adopt your own guidelines for yourself and for your students. Don't be a headline. There are multiple articles about teachers who have made life-altering decisions when engaging in inappropriate relationships. And then cheating is a no-win situation. One of the most notable cheating scandals is out of Atlanta. They've even made a film about it. And the link here is to that. Well-intentioned educators that made decisions that changed their life. Notice on this graphic, like multiple years in prison, indictments, convictions. This is just not something that is worth you losing your license. I appreciate you taking your time and listening to this presentation. Thank you so much. As a follow-up to this presentation, I did send out a Google survey, just asking about ethical behavior in the teaching profession. And on each of these questions, I also included an other option so that teachers could provide their own answer. Although most of them, I left it as a yes, no, it depends on the situation, and then other. And then the last question is asking them the best advice they can give a new teacher entering the profession regarding ethical behavior. And so I had 16 responses from the faculty members that I sent this out to. I have a nice cross section of grade levels that are taught. It's like 43% are K through 5, but I have a lot that are in the different grade levels. And so one of the questions is talking about free speech. Should you preface what you say with, these are my personal opinions and not those of the district? And a large majority of them said it depends on the situation. So I think that's very interesting. You did have 31% say yes, and then some in other that said they try to avoid expressing personal opinion in the elementary. Teachers are allowed to write editorials in support or in opposition regarding practices within the district as a private citizen. This one is really interesting too. You have 43% that say yes, a teacher can write that editorial. And then you have some others depending on the situation. I like this one. Teachers are allowed to voice their opinion, but employees are encouraged to contact their principal or district about a practice they feel strongly about changing. I think that's great advice. This question, teachers have the First Amendment right to voice their opinion on most any matter within the classroom. And you have a lot of it depends on the situation. 31% said no. And then some of the other responses, they have a right to voice their opinion as long as it doesn't involve a privacy issue. And someone said, I guess they have the right, but it can't disrupt the learning environment. So that was interesting. Teachers have the right to deviate from the curriculum as he or she sees fit. This one is a rainbow, and it's because there's several others as responses. So 37% said it depends on the situation. 25% said no, you can't deviate from the curriculum. And some of these other responses, teachers have to follow the Alabama course of study and teach the standards as long as it's in addition to required content or curriculum, yes, within reason and with discussion with their grade level team. Teachers can post pictures and statements on their personal social media accounts and not worry about it impacting his or her employment. So this one is kind of a loaded question. And notice that I didn't trick anybody. 87.5% said no, you can't do that and not worry about it impacting your employment. You have, and it depends on the situation, and then teachers are examples to their students, and they should only be professional. Teachers can contact students through personal cell phone or other non-school programs as they see fit. Nobody said yes. Everyone said no, that's not a good idea, and they should use school emails. Yes, but it's not wise. It's strongly discouraged, so that's good. Teachers can hold office as an elected official within an organization or government office. So this one is interesting. I think that this other depends on the office. Mayor of a local town, yes. School board member of your district, no. Those are some things that people responded there. And then private conduct or lifestyle choices of a teacher are private and cannot affect his or her employment. 62% said no, that their private conduct or their lifestyle choices cannot affect his or her employment. And so notice this other, as long as their lifestyle choices do not affect their professionalism and the ability to teach students. And that really is the key there, is what you're doing in your private life. Is it something that becomes public and becomes an issue when it comes to being professional and being able to lead students? Some of the advice, some of it was really funny. Run away. I love that. Don't be unethical. Don't make any bad choices. Someone's always watching you. Someone said, know Christ, know his word, know the policies regarding your choice. You represent the school district. You're there for the students. Everything reflects that. You've got to be professional and have integrity. Considering the impact of what you're doing, I think that's great. When in doubt, ask an administrator. And I really do think that is a key takeaway from a lot of this is when in doubt, ask. Don't friend your students on social media. Remember, you're an example. Conduct yourself professionally. Be friendly, but not their friend. Pretend the person you respect most in the world is going to see it or hear it. Would you still say it or post it? That's a great one. If you have questions about it, ask an administrator or a colleague. Remember, social media is for everyone in all caps to see. Would you do it or say it in front of mom and dad? That's a good one. Never mix your personal life with your school life. If you use a platform, don't use the same platform for your personal. And what you say or do is a direct reflection of how you are perceived as a professional. So these are all great comments. The one thing I wish I had done was in the survey ask how many years they had been teaching, because I do think that with experience, teachers get better insight into these things. So that was the way I led a discussion to go with my presentation. Thank you so much.